This life really is a crazy thing, isn't it? It's so wild. I uh, I was doing everything the way that I was taught to do it. I believed everything that I had been taught, and then my father fell ill, and my parents were divorced. It was just me and my dad. We were very close, and so naturally, I became his primary caretaker. It was about 13 years of ups and downs. We never knew when he was going to cross. So that put us in a space that felt very unsafe. And I had to learn how to feel safe in an unsafe space. And that was where I started questioning death. Where do we go? Where do we come from? It's interesting now because I look back on everything I've been through and I see myself time and time again sitting in the hospital, crying, waiting because he's in ICU or because he's in surgery or they're trying to save him. And I would be out in the waiting room feeling so lost. Like I don't understand why this would be happening to him and why I have to experience this. Down the road, now I look back and I realize it was never about him, really. We have this conditioned belief about death, that it's this terribly sad thing. The only part that's sad about death is the fact that we're going to miss the physicalities of that person. But death itself is not sad. If you knew, undoubtedly, if you had a belief, undoubtedly, that on the other side of this was something beautiful, then death wouldn't be as fearful as it is. The only reason we get so sad about death is because we, as a collective, we've adopted this belief that we don't know what happens next. If you really check in with yourself, you have an opportunity and an option to fill that question in, what happens to life after death, with an answer that's going to serve your survival. Because at the end of the day, we're going to lose loved ones. It's a part of how this world works, is to experience separation. What would that feel like if you really no longer had that person? But when you cross back over, you're reunited with them again. Now, I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I'm saying that we're on a ball floating in space, and I have to believe something that's going to assist me in omitting higher frequencies. This idea that I'm never going to see my loved one again, and hopefully they did all right so that they didn't go down south, that belief, I get angry with that belief. It doesn't help me omit frequencies of happiness. I get pissed off. I'm mad at the universe. I get mad at God. And that was the conditioned belief that I had originally when my father fell ill. And eventually I got to a space where I was like, I can't live like this. I'm just angry and I just can't live like this. And that's what pushed me outside of the limitations in which my mind had created for myself. This idea that I have no answers, it's up or down, and we really don't know what's going to happen. I just couldn't continue believing that because it was the belief that was making my experience more traumatic. We all have loved ones, and we all have these experiences where we jeopardize losing a loved one. Or I have a friend who has a sick child, and I know that there have been some close calls. And I get flashbacks. There was one time not long ago where she texted me and she's like, hey, so-and-so coded, she's in ICU. And I'm a mess right now. And it took me back to all the times that happened with my dad and all the times that I sat in the waiting room feeling lost, which was a result of truly believing that I had no answers. If you believed that there was beauty on the other side of the veil, it will still be a tough journey to overcome, but it will make it easier. It will make it easier. The whole reason that my father was sick in my reality was not because my father and because he was a victim to his circumstance. We designed it that way. And I know that now. We designed it that way to wake me up. So when you're going through a situation and you're dealing with a loved one, my friend's dealing with her daughter, the souls in our lives, they're just playing their parts. They're playing parts that they've agreed to play to help wake us up, to help push us out, to help us build a relationship and solidify a relationship with the universe, with something bigger. As humans, we have a tendency of not wanting to branch out until something traumatic happens. Like, we'll just keep paddling uphill with the same belief structure until we can't anymore. The whole reason I wrote my book and have started these podcasts is in hopes to assist people to begin thinking outside of the box before they have a traumatic event. You're going to get to where we're going no matter what. But if I can assist you in evaluating certain things, certain beliefs, then that's what I'm going to do, because that's going to make a huge difference when it comes to navigating situations like these. It is never about the other soul. I remember sitting in the waiting room being like, feeling so terrible for my dad. And now where I'm at, I look back on the situation and I'm like, every time he was sedated or in a coma, he was in the other realm. He was fine. He was beyond fine. He's like, I'm taking a break from Earth. In other words, it was never about him. It was about me. It's always about you. It's always about you. No matter what you're going through, the circumstance in your life is not about the other person. It's about you. It's about you and what you believe and how much you trust. And what would you do if you were in that moment where everything gets put on hold and you feel lost and you feel stuck? What do? Do you stay there? Or do you start talking to the universe? Do you start questioning things? Do you start looking for an alternative answer? Half the reason I suffered so much was not because of my father's circumstance. It was because of the belief that I had. It was not supporting my survival when it came to his circumstance. Life is always going to be filled with ups and downs. You're never going to get rid of them. They're always going to be ups and downs. I think that's one of the flawed concepts that we've been taught, is this idea that you're going to bust your ass and eventually you're going to get to a point where you're going to bust your ass and eventually you're going to get to a point where life is good and you don't have any more problems. But that's not how this world works. This world is designed to have an ebb and flow, which involves the idea of an up and a down. So you're always going to have ups and downs. But when you have a belief structure that supports your survival through these circumstances, then your downs don't go that far down. They can't get you the way that they got you before. Because you're like, nope, we're on a ball floating in space. It's up to me as to what I want to believe. So when I started filling in this answer of what happens to life after death, when I started truly evaluating that question, which is true, it is really one of the biggest questions. It is the biggest question that you will ever ask yourself and that you will ever provide yourself an answer with. What happens to life after death? You have to have a belief that serves you. When you lose a loved one, what assists you in getting through that circumstance? When you have somebody, a child, a family member, a loved one, and they're sick, and they're dealing with an illness, they're dealing with surviving, what do you believe? Because that's going to make or break whether you get through that situation. A lot of times, the caretaker is still experiencing a similar level of pain and suffering. It's just different because it's not happening to them, it's happening in front of them. But it still creates these emotions of feeling lost and sad, a lack of understanding in what's going on. The reason I wanted to share this is because I have some friends that are going through certain things right now. And they're pretty severe circumstances, And I just wanted to remind everybody that whatever you're going through, be right here, right now. Call on your higher self. Ask your higher self to sit with you. Take a deep breath. And trust. Choose to trust. When you have trouble getting into that space, it's because you have beliefs, conditioned beliefs, and your mind is trying to speak to you as if those beliefs are accurate. But for majority of us, we have beliefs that are not accurate. And really at the end of the day, there is no right or wrong. So even if your mind wants to tell you these beliefs are accurate, you could tell your mind that's not true, because we're on a ball floating in space. Whatever is accurate is whatever I identify with. Whatever I choose to believe is accurate. But that choice is up to you. The objective then becomes to allow your mind to reconstruct itself. That's the healing process. And it's a lot of times during that process that the universe will put you in situations and predicaments where you're going to get tested. But what's happening is they're also opening up opportunities to help you get to a space where your mind has been picked apart and your beliefs have been picked apart. And now you're starting to put together beliefs that serve you. It's a difficult thing when you're going through a traumatic event to see that. A lot of times you just have to go through the event, get through the event. And then once you're on the other side of the event, this is when you kind of look back on things and you're like, well, wait a minute. Could I have been doing this differently? And quite frankly, what is it that I believe? My dad was in survival mode for a good 13 years. We didn't get a timeline. It was like he could go tomorrow or he could go in 5 years from now. And so that put us in a very vulnerable space. But it was during that time frame of those 13 years that I started looking at things like differently. Not only did I start questioning modern day science and my subconscious and my conscious mind, I saw myself thinking negatively so easily. And my question became, why does the mind do that? He was never going to be able to eat again. He lost his ability to walk. Eventually, he started losing it mentally. And as I'm watching all of this unfold and all this happen, I'm kind of thinking in my mind, like, I'm upset because what? I'm behind on my car payment? Or I'm late on rent? This person's never going to be able to eat a meal again. This person can't shut it off. They're full throttle in the event that's unfolding. I get to shut it off at least. Not shut it off, but you know what I mean. I get to leave the hospital for a few hours. He can't. And I started noticing I'm upset and I was a victim, and yet I'm looking at his perspective standing right next to mine, and I'm not a victim at all, and I really have no reason to be upset. I get to go downstairs and get a meal, and I get to savor that meal and eat that meal. My dad's situation brought back up front all of the things that the mind has been conditioned to take advantage of, such as eating a meal or walking across the room. You start realizing that these things that our mind makes into these huge deals really doesn't need to be that big of a deal. It's like, I'll pay rent. It's going to be fine. I'll be fine. I'll pay the car payment. It's going to be fine. I'll be fine. That's so small compared to life. and what life is and what life offers you and the opportunity that life offers you. Wherever you're at and whatever you're going through, there's a reason that you found this podcast episode. There's a reason that you're on my channel. Make sure that you like and subscribe, because I am all about coming together to create a space to help each other to heal and to adopt perspectives that serve our experience here on earth. I've spent the last 6-7 years deconditioning my mind and reconditioning it after I went through my dark night of the soul. I now have adopted a completely different belief structure. It is outside of the normal, but it serves my survival. I don't care if it's right or wrong for anybody else. It's right for me. My father was dying. I needed to believe in something that was better than what I had been taught. And now I thrive with these beliefs. I thrive with them. I would never go back. I truly believe we're multidimensional. I truly believe that Earth is a school. I truly believe there's a version of you in the other realm that has all the answers you're looking for. That's what I refer to as my higher self. When I'm channeling, that's who I'm talking to. And then you can expand outside of there. There's multiple different worlds, and there's versions of you in all the worlds. When I'm channeling, I'm connecting with that version of me in each world. It really is amazing. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I'm saying that we're on a ball floating in space. My mind is going to create a construct, and I need that construct to be invigorating, exciting, and to serve me, especially when it comes to navigating life. This idea that I'm alone in the universe and there's no answers, no rhyme or reason, it's just not going to work. So whatever you're going through, it's probably challenging your core beliefs. Let it. Let it challenge your core beliefs. Because I can guarantee you, majority of us, what we've been taught is not the best belief. Not when you're on a ball floating in space and you have an option of believing whatever you want. Most of us, this idea that we have no answers, we're going to heaven or hell, and it's just not going to work. That's why death is so damn difficult. It's not because death is difficult. It's because the belief we have about death makes death difficult. A lot of us are being challenged at this time. So I just want you to know, not even just from me, but from your higher self. Because if you're here, your higher self knows you're here, right? So from me, my higher self, from your higher self, and your guidance team, I see you. I hear you. And I love you. Take a deep breath and trust that something bigger is going on. Utilize the circumstance that you're going through to learn how to trust. Now you have to believe in something different if you want to get through this. I love you guys. I support you. Thank you so much for loving and supporting me. I'm sending so much love. If you're interested in getting a read or working with me in any other capacity, make sure that you hit that like and that subscribe button. You can also hop onto my website at InnerSarah, INNER, Sarah, SARAH.com. Subscribe that way so that you get notified when my book is coming out. And also, if you're interested in getting a read or working with me in any other capacity, the website is the way to go. Don't forget, this is a free will universe, so you have to call on your higher self. But it's just a version of you. Nothing to be fearful of. It's just a version of you that you're reconnecting with. All right, so call on that higher self. If you're feeling lost, you're feeling confused, say, higher self, I'm feeling lost. I'm feeling confused. Trying to figure out what's going on here. And see what kind of results you get. See what kind of results. What do you have left to lose? Start playing with the idea of a higher self. Start playing with the idea of being multidimensional. It's going to help you navigate whatever situation you're going through.